Good morning. Good morning, good morning, and welcome to Wednesday in November. This year has disappeared completely. Blink of an eye. That's what happens when you get older, apparently. Wouldn't know. Welcome to Wednesday. As always, if you are watching, do please pop a hello in the comments and we'll see who's out to play today. It is grey, bit dreary. Very autumnal in Hampshire, in southern England today. Good morning, Ellie. Good morning, Heather. Yeah, definitely a bit grey and dreary here. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Sasha. I think the trick-or-treaters last night were definitely put off by torrential rain. Bless them. Good morning, good morning. So, welcome to November. Welcome to this morning's chat. Good morning, Susan from very wet and windy West Sussex. Yep, it's pretty much that here. Ellie, have you a storm coming? We're catching the tail end of a storm, yes. It's been wet this week, pretty much. Good morning, Claire. Heather, you're looking glamorous. Thank you. I'm working on my secret project today. More news to be revealed in a few weeks. Not, obviously I don't always look glamorous, but yeah, that's why. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Gina. Had lots of pixies knocking last night. We had rain, and I'm assuming everyone got very wet or didn't bother. Good morning, Jackie, watching you via YouTube. Bewitched Botanicals. Do hop on over to Bewitched Botanicals website. They have glorious body products, soaps and body whips and all sorts of wonderful things. And yes, see you on Saturday. If anyone is local, Cowplain, Portsmouth area, Wandering Witches Fair on Saturday. Myself, Ness, Sue and Heather will be there. We'll have books to sell and some little bits and pieces. Come up and have a chat. Be nice to catch up with everyone. Lots of stalls, bit of music, cup of tea, slice of cake. Do come and join us if you are in the area. Good morning, Helen. Good morning, Jane from a miserable Chadwell Heath. Yep, it is a miserable Hampshire too. Bonjour, Cornelia. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Emma. Hope the new pup's doing well. There's a link there to Wandering Witches. Pete's putting up lots of links. Okay, I've got another. I'm doing my Moon Magic online class again for the College of Psychic Studies in November. So do hop on over and have a look if you're interested in that. There's the link as well coming up for the Bewitched Botanicals website. Do go and have a look. What else we've got? I have a book launch. That one, Element of Water. November something. 25th. I want to say the 25th. Gonna have a look. You're impressed. I've got my diary on my phone. Look. How high tech am I? Yes, Saturday, 25th of November, YouTube channel and Facebook page. My book launch. I'll be doing a chat about the element of water and doing a book giveaway, 7:00 UK time. Good morning, David. Doing the washing up. Oh, that's what we have a teenager for. His one and only chore is to load the dishwasher. He struggles with that too, but there you go. Lisa had some lovely trick-or-treaters last night. 20-year-old daughter and her boyfriend carved their pumpkins to put out so the children know they're welcome. Good idea. One little one said to my daughter, "This is the best house because you give 2 sweets." But your pumpkins aren't very scary. Oh no. Oh well, you win some, you lose some. If you want to know what I'm up to, do have a look at the events page on my website so that I don't bore you all with all the stuff. Yeah, it's all there. Go and have a look. Emma, feeling very scared, so lots of hugs. Oh, bless her. Bless her. Good morning, Angela. Watching on YouTube, but commenting on Facebook as it's easier. Oh, multitasking. Get you. Angela, feels like it was only a week ago I was saying how it's October already. I know this year has just disappeared. Jackie, we carved our pumpkins with trick-or-treaters loved and we were busy. Good. All good fun. Yep, there's the link for the Element of Water online book launch, but it's on the usual places. It's on YouTube and Facebook, where you are today. 25th November, 7 p.m. Jane had a lot of wandering witchlets last night ringing our spooky doorbell. 61 in all. That's impressive. Had to send the last 2 next door because I ran out of sweets. Oh no. I'd only made 38 pendulums, so they didn't go far. No, 61. That's quite impressive. Angela, only 6 weeks until my daughter arrives to stay for Christmas. I know, yeah, the festive season will be on us in a blink of an eye, won't it? Yeah. I love it. I love the festive season. Love that energy. Fabulous. Had my first mince pie yesterday. Good morning, Maria. So today's subject was suggested by one of you lovely people, and it is different witchcraft pathways. So that's the subject for today. If you have any thoughts about it, if you'd like to share your pathway, and we're kind of looking at labels here. It's a difficult one because some people don't like putting labels on things, but there are some witchcraft pathways that are quite specific, that do have name tags, if you like. So that's what we're going to look at today. So yes, if you want to share what pathway you follow, what you call your pathway, if there are pathways you're interested in, you don't know anything about, pop them in the comments and we'll see where we go with it all. Angela said, my mum always used to say, life is like a toilet roll. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. Yes. Yeah, it's, well, we had Samhain. It's still Samhain, really. At the moment, haven't we? That energy of ancestors, of those that have passed over, is very much with us at the moment. Yeah. It's been a difficult week for my family with that as well, but everyone has to deal with it. Life is a cycle, and that's what happens. Life, death, rebirth, and the whole cycle starts again. And that's a lot about what the energy is at the moment over the Samhain period. Yeah, very much thinking about ancestors and family time. Definitely. So let's have a kick-off, shall we, with witchcraft things. Jackie, think of Samhain as a season it should go on for 2 weeks like Christmas. I think it does. If you think about, I've talked about the Wheel of the Year last week. Yeah, it might have been last week. For me, the Sabbats are not just one date on a calendar. They go over a period of weeks. So I'm betting that most of us put up Samhain decorations several weeks ago, and they will stay up until the festive ones come in. And for me, that's how it should be. 2 or 3 weeks before the Sabbath, 2 or 3 weeks after the Sabbath. It is a period of time. It's that energy, definitely. Jane, don't think my wandering witchlets were serious about witching, though. At least 50 of them were Hindu. Okay. Well, hey, sweets. There were 2 lanky youths who said they didn't believe in witches and were only out on a candy grab. I sent them packing, but they got their sweeties and backed off before owning up. Yeah, wise. Very wise. Yeah, poor Milo, Maria. Poor Milo. Still in the hospital. Oh, bless him. I hope he feels better soon. Good morning, Colin. Right, so there we go. Emma, let's get this one. Considered myself Celtic witch, but now that Carly is back, I'm a mix and muddle witch. That's a good one. Mix and muddle. Angela, very eclectic, but mostly green, hedge, kitchen, chaos witch. That is quite eclectic collection of stuff. Heather's giving me weird words to say. Samhain is the Irish Gaelic word for November. There are a lot of witches I know that don't celebrate Samhain on the 31st of October, but do celebrate it on the 1st of November. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to start with Wicca because it was the foundation for modern witchcraft. I say modern because Wicca is modern. Although when I think of modern, I think, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a lot longer than that, but it's still modern. So Wicca was created, I want to say invented, but not invented, was created back in the 40s and the 50s. Gerald Gardner, probably one of the most main figures in it. It's a formal and structured tradition. Wicca is actually seen as a religion. Let's separate those two first. Witchcraft is a magical practice. Witchcraft is the act of making magic, of working and manipulating energy for magic. Anyone of any faith, any religion can technically work with witchcraft because it is a magical practice, not a religion. However, a lot of witches do see it as a religion, and I'm quite okay with that. But Wicca is a religion, so it is quite structured, stemming from people like Gerald Gardner, Dorian Valiente. It did kick off quite a big, not revival, because Wicca, although Wicca draws upon influences from ancient teachings, what we see as witchcraft now, unless you're working with the sort of folk herbal remedies and a bit of folk magic, what we work with witchcraft now is probably nothing like it used to be. Originally with the cunning folk. But Wiccan is where my training began, and I have worked through the 3 Wiccan degrees, and I have gained my title of High Priestess, for which I'm very blessed. It was a very good structure for me to learn. It was a very good grounding. Don't consider myself Wiccan any longer, haven't done for a long time, but it has formed the basis for what a huge amount of us witches still draw from. The rituals that you are familiar with, the ritual structure you're familiar with, will have all come from Wicca. It was drawn from some of the ancient ideas of what witchcraft was, but it drew quite heavily from the Golden Dawn, from Freemasonry. It's quite ceremonial, it's quite structured. There are formal rituals to it. There are certain guidelines. The Coven is quite structured, usually with a high priestess and a high priest. It's very focused on the balance of male and female, masculine and feminine, the sun and the moon. There is a Wiccan Read, which is a guideline to follow, the threefold law. You guys know what Wicca's all about. And it is a very good structure. It is a very good system. I took to it because at the time it was the only witchcraft pathway that was available to me pre-internet. But I like the idea because it takes time to learn it all. You've got that structure and you have to work your way through it. So yeah, it's good. It's a complete package, if you like. But we all draw from it. And while I'm mentioning Wicca, I need to mention the Gardnerian tradition. This was someone initiated into a coven that practices the Gardnerian tradition of Wicca. Gardnerian Wicca was founded by Gerald Gardner. It was ceremonial. It was drawn from Aleister Crowley figures in there as well. It is quite, I don't want to say secret, but it's quite closed. You need to be a part of the coven. You need to be a part of the tradition to know their teachings. They are oath-bound, generally, which means that all that they learn is not discussed outside of the coven. They follow a particular structure of teaching, and they can trace their lineage back to Gerard Gardner. He initiates the high priest or high priestess who, that follows through. The same with the Alexandrian tradition, which was found by Alex Saunders in the 60s. Similar to the Gardnerian tradition, but he put his own ideas into it. Gardnerian got the influence as well of the Kabbalah. But very similar, I think that there are 3 levels of degrees that you have to work through, and there is the whole lineage thing as well. If that is what you're after, go for it. Have at it, as they say. So that's Wicca, kind of summed up very quickly. Let's go back to here. Angela celebrated Samhain on Saturday with the full moon and treat the week before and the week after as the season. Yep, I'll go with that. Good morning, Trudy. Late from Samhain celebrations last night. I hope you had fun. Good evening, Sephora. Had to finish painting a row in the ceiling. Oh no. Don't like painting. Don't like house decorating. Jane, Halloween is done and dusted. Now Samhain starts. That's a good way of thinking of it. Spend a good few days getting my ancestor altar together because I think of November as the month of the dead. Yep, I would go with that. And we need a lot more than one evening to connect and respect. I would go with that too. Absolutely. Right, Michelle, Celtic witch, but also following Norse deities. Kinds of witchcraft I do are very eclectic. I do what's needed at the moment. I was told once that is chaos witchcraft. There is a whole practice of chaos magic. That is a whole thing on its own. But I think chaos comes into any kind of magical working. You are working with energy. You're manipulating energy, and chaos comes into it, whatever way you look at it. Charlie, film ancestors come in before the day and after, definitely. Yep, I sensed them before. Hedge, green, Celtic, kitchen, sparkly witch. Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. Definitely a thing. Maria, can you perform a dumb supper during this month also? Absolutely, absolutely. Good morning, Luna. Cat, green forest, kitchen, art witch, very eclectic. My path has changed over the many years, but feeling very settled now. Started out on my path as a Wiccan for many years, but it was too rigid a path for me. Yeah, that's what I found really. I love the structure of it. I love the fact that it gives full and training and that it takes time to work through it all. I'm glad I did it. I have a bit of a thing that many years ago now, I was introduced to someone who was a high priestess, and they said they became a high priestess of their coven at the age of 16. I have quite a big issue with that. It is my personal thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to disagree. It's entirely up to you. At the age of 16, you will not have had time to have worked through the training that I think you need to be a high priest, high priestess. You will not have had enough life experiences to run a coven. I think you need to do that training. I think you need to have lived life to some degree to be able to run a coven, to be a high priest or a high priestess. I did my Wiccan training. It took me 8 years to do my 3 levels and to gain my high priestess title. I did a lot of training. I did a lot of book training. I did a lot of academic training, and I did a lot of real life get out there and do it training. But in my high priestess training, I also studied how to deal with people, how to deal with grief, how to deal a bit of the psychology side of things, dealing with people, mentoring. It is quite a big responsibility. And as a high priest, a high priestess of a coven, you have to not only deal with the magical witchcraft side of things, you have to deal with people. And I think you need a bit of life experience to be able to do that. So that's my soapbox for training. Jackie, we were Alexandrians for a while. I think our paths all change, don't they? We all kind of start somewhere. You have to start somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily. Your path doesn't necessarily go in a straight line. Mine certainly hasn't. It's gone all over the place, and I've ended up picking bits and pieces from here and there. So you'll find a bit of Wicca influence, particularly in things like my ritual structures. But these days, I am kitchen witch. Kitchen witch is a more modern term, but it describes someone that works a lot with magical food, magical plants, herbs, spices. A kitchen witch will work with whatever she has or he has to hand. Kitchen witch will literally work with whatever items are there to make magic with. It's very much centered around the home, the hearth of the home. I think it extends out into the garden as well. So it is herbal, it is magical food, but it's practical. It's folk magic. For me, a lot of my witchcraft now is based on folk magic, is based on the art of the cunning folk. I do draw as well on as a hedge witch. For me, a hedge witch, the key thing for being a hedge witch is walking between the worlds. The clue for me is in the title. Yeah, you work with the hedge. It is a big, big part of being a hedge witch. Very similar to a kitchen witch in the use whatever's to hand. Very much herbal, very much working with the items that Mother Nature provides to work magic with. But the key thing for me for being a hedge witch is that traveling between the worlds. It's riding the hedge. And that's not just meditation. That's not just connecting with spirit world. That is shamanic work. It is about traveling to the underworld, to the midworld, to the upper world. And that for me is a big part of being a hedge witch. So I'm kind of kitchen hedge witch, if you want to give it a kind of label. However, in the last few years, I've also worked a lot with traditional witchcraft, which is very much more relaxed, very much more working with the energies around you. And again, drawing from the practices of the cunning folk. So I am a little bit, someone called me a cocktail witch once at a witch fest event I was at. They decided I was a cocktail witch, which I quite like. But I think I've taken bits and pieces from the various pathways that I've worked with over the years and made my own. I trained in Druidry for a while as well. So I kind of draw bits from that as well. Another one to look at is solitary. If you work as a witch on your own and not part of a coven, then you could be classed as a solitary witch. Someone mentioned eclectic a minute ago, and I think that is. I think a lot of us are eclectic or miscellaneous, as I like to call it. And it is about, I think that's what I love about the pathway of being a witch, is that you can take the bits and pieces that work for you and make them your own. So you end up with your own personal pathway. Right, lots of comments. Let's get these up. Good morning, Kate. David, I started following Wicca at the start of my path back in the 90s, but I realised it didn't quite fit me, and I found myself leaning more into the new kid on the block chaos theory. I know it wasn't new, but it got a major boost thanks to the likes of Phil Hines' Yes, which really changed my early learnings. Yeah, I think looking at the chaos magic is fascinating. I think there is a lot of that in all of the magic that we work. Support random witch. Yeah, you can identify as that. Oh, Jane, Colleen, that's Jane's cat, has just bitten 2 holes in my phone. Oh no, looks like it's been bitten by a vampire. She was obviously drawing on the Halloween energies from last night. Oh no. Pets. Maria, I feel a bit cringe when someone attempts to tell me they're a high priestess in a way that is supposed to make them otherworldly like. I think there is one problem for me, I think, with any of this. Technically, anyone could call themselves whatever they like. You don't need to have gone through formal qualifications to call yourself a high priest or a high priestess. I like to know that someone has that training and that experience to be able to call themselves that. I say I earned mine, and it took me 8 years. I did have a baby in the middle of that 8 years, so I did kind of slow down my learnings. But to know that you are in charge of a coven, I want to know that you have that experience and that training to be able to deal with not just the magic of it. When you are in ritual with a whole group of people, the person in charge of it needs to be able to deal with that energy that you're raising. They need to have that experience to know how to deal with it. But it's not just that. The coven is made up of a group of people. It becomes a community. And communities have issues the same as any group of people. So yeah, I want to know that whoever is the high priest or the high priestess knows what they're doing, really. We don't always get it right, but if you've had training and experience, then hopefully you at least know where to start with it. But I do know what you mean, Maria. I don't use my high priestess title very often. My lovely team, Heather calls me boss, which makes me laugh every single time. But no one actually calls me Lady Tansy Fire Dragon, which is my official title. When I did first gain it, some of my friends tended to call me Lady Tansy Pants, so which is probably a better title. But yes, I do know what you mean. Jackie, my high priest and priestess were in Alexander's coven before they hived off to form their own, which is where and how we came into it. But the training was solid and took time. And that's how it works with things like the Alexandrian and the Gardnerian traditions. You have to go through all of your 3 degrees of training and your high priest, high priestess training. Once you've done all that, then you go off and you hive your own off into your own coven. And yeah, that it's experience and training, isn't it, which I think you need. Charlie, sometimes wish my path was one tradition lineage. It feels goddess, god, spirit laughs when I want it neatly in a box and throws angels reiki at me, but nature and witch are home always. Yeah, I must admit, we have a friend that follows the Hellenic pathway, which is another one to look at. So Hellenic witch is a witch that works with the ancient Greek pantheons and traditions. That's all they work with. Don't work outside that. It is following the Greek traditions, working with only Greek gods and goddesses. It's very structured. All of the gods and goddesses have their own special dates on the calendar. There are particular rituals that you have to go to. There are particular ways of honoring them and working with them and offerings and things. Witchcraft was practiced by the ancient Greeks. Probably not how we work with it today as such, but there are elements of it. But there's loads of festivals in the Hellenic pathway. But I always used to feel a little bit envious because it's quite structured and you knew what date you were working on and with what god, and you knew this and it was all quite laid out. Yeah, I know what you mean. When you are miscellaneous, lots of stuff gets thrown in your way. Emma, I started off as a Wiccan, but I couldn't really get on with it after a while. Kind of jumped off the Wicca wagon about 5 to 6 years into it. Feel more comfortable now in the head. And I think you have to. I think you have to feel comfortable. But please don't take this as me knocking the Wiccan tradition. I am absolutely not. It was perfect for the time that I worked through it. And I think it has that fabulous structure. And I think it's a really good way. Oh, hello, there's a dog. Special guest. Sorry, I have to do that. Oh, tea, yep. Thank you. We have tea from the international shop, don't we? So my tea is called Dogadan. And there he is. There he is. Yeah, I have Dogadan tea. Dogadan tea. Hello. You're going back down now because you'll be sitting whining at the top of the stairs otherwise, won't you?
Want to take him down?
You can go downstairs.
No, then.
Yep.
Good boy. Go
on then. Bless him. Bless him. Bless him. Maria. I'm just me. Yep. I mean, I'm looking at these because it's an interesting thing to look at the different pathways, but you don't have to give yourself a specific label. Absolutely do not have to. Mixture of home, kitchen, and nature. Yeah, that's lovely. Jane's cat Colleen is being very naughty. Charlie, 16. No judgment, but learning and what I sometimes forget myself. Time for integration. Integration time can be magical and deepen things, and I learned so much. Yeah, I think there is no shortcut to experience in anything. And that all takes time. It does all take time. Angela, done all 3 levels of the Wiccan training, obtaining my HUP status, but I never tell anyone, especially as by the end of it, I felt Wicca was not for me. Though I also feel some training are more comprehensive than others. Mine was definitely not as in-depth as yours. Still took me 6 years. And it's a good structure. It is a good basis to learn from. There are other ways of doing it. I am not saying that everyone has to go through the Wiccan training. Absolutely not. But if you are going to run your own coven and call yourself a high priest or a high priestess, there has to be a level of learning, training, understanding, and experience, I think. My opinion. Karen, I work with the earth, trees, elementals, and fae. I work in the end with the green. Drifted for a while, but not for long. Green witchcraft seems to be quite more modern title. I think it kind of covers a little bit of all sorts, doesn't it? Because I think if you had to find one thing that ties all of these pathways together, it would probably be nature. We all work with nature, don't we? We all connect with nature. Jane, solitary, eclectic, pick and mix. Yeah, but like to join a circle when I get the opportunity. Find most circles I've joined in with as blow through have been Wiccan. Left Wicca behind long ago, but when I started out, Wiccan books were predominant in bookshops. Yes, that's all I could get hold of at the time. And that's probably why that's where I started. I think if you... the beauty of it is that now we can choose all these different things. We can do this whole pick and mix. We can work with things when we want to. And perhaps the internet as well has allowed us to do this, in that we can be a solitary, but join in with online stuff when we want to. So yeah, it's making it work for you, I think. Hannah, don't actually class myself as a witch at all. I'm a bit of everything. So if I ever put a name to myself, patchwork pagan, I like that. But there is that. So witch is about working with witchcraft. I am a pagan witch. So my religion is that of a pagan. My practice is that of a witch. Yeah, there are so many different... Jack of all pagan paths, master of none. Yeah, I'm there. David, did call myself a chaotic shaman of... I can never say that word. I'm not even going to attempt it. Have to get my son to pronounce that one whenever we're talking about it. Yeah. Squid witch, I'm going to call it. Octopus witch. I can hear a little pitter-patter of tiny furry feet coming back up the stairs. Colin knew someone who followed the Egyptian path. It's one kind of pantheon that I've never really worked with is the Egyptians. I've worked with the odd deity on occasion, but never really looked into it. Fascinating, though. Fascinating. Jane, I know that what Maria means about some HPs. I came across one particular one who had a my way or the highway approach. Mm-hmm. Came across as a bit of an insecure fraud and made a point of dancing around and chanting mysterious words to look like something other. She was very condescending and rude to me, so I've not gone near her since. This, I think, it does seem to draw people that want the power of it. And I think this is quite important if you are looking for a coven or a moot or a pagan group to join. do try and get recommendations from other people. Do try and talk to other people that belong to the group before you join. And also, if you go along and you don't like it and you get that hinky vibe, walk away. Definitely walk away. Jane is going to buy a new cover for her phone now. It's going to come out of Colleen's pocket money. Oh, bless. Charlie, 16. I would worry a bit for their well-being, safety, and the Covens as a high priestess if things go wrong. Yes, now that's one of my big issues. Tempting advanced things when not ready, and it could be risky. And I think that is, you are dealing with people, and people have problems, and people have issues. People within a coven often have issues with other people within a coven as well. And you have to have the experience to deal with that as well. So, yeah. Jackie, not Wiccan anymore, just an old hedge witch. Yep, you and me both, Jackie. You and me both. Una sleeps on Maria's phone. I guess it's warm, isn't it? Cats like the warmth. And these days there are also water witches, red witches, intuitive witches. Yeah, I think all witches are intuitive, aren't we? Isn't that intuition is a huge part of being a witch? But yes, there are a lot of water witches. There are a lot of red witches. Yeah, definitely. Jackie likes patchwork pagan. I do. I think that's a fab way of describing it. Jalala. Studying Druidry at the moment. Yes, I have done that too. I did the first level of Obod. Also consider myself a green witch. Druidry in a lot of ways is similar to being a witch. It has that pagan connection as well if you want it to. You don't have to, again, be a certain religion to follow Druidry. Yeah, there are crossovers. There are definite crossovers. I have met people who call themselves Drew witches by combining it. Colin had an online ritual yesterday to celebrate Samhain. Perfect. Sephora. Magic was always around, but life got in the way for too long. Finally have gotten to the age where I've realized it's time to acknowledge and try and understand it. And it's an amazing journey to take. Emma, still have my Wiccan books. So do I. So do I. Just don't feel the need to get rid of them. My favourite one is Wicca and Witchcraft for Dummies. Don't have that one, but those for Dummies books are quite good. Charlie, thought popped in. My nans, where my high priestess both were very calm and grounded and wise, quite blunt, didn't do drama, and were careful who and what they gave their energy to. So much experience. Yeah, there is no shortcut to it. And the dog is up here now, and I'm going to have to go and put the blanket on him. So excuse me for a moment. You'd like a blanket, would you? Yeah, then. There. Right. Right, that's one dog settled, hopefully. Hopefully he's settled. There is, of course, Hereditary Witchcraft. That one led me to Hereditary Witchcraft. I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. Hereditary Witchcraft is someone who is born and raised into a pagan witchy family with a specific set of traditions that are handed down within that family. I don't think it's a difficult one because to be hereditary, you follow the traditions from the generation before, and those traditions don't change. So great-grandmother, grandmother, mother all practice the specific type of magic, and the next generation down does too. The thing I have with this is that if it's a Wiccan hereditary tradition, then it's only going to go back to the 40s, 50s. So that's not very far. I think there are probably a lot of people that have folk magic within the family. Folk remedies, herbal remedies, superstitions, that kind of thing. To be a hereditary witch going back generations, I think is a difficult one to trace because witchcraft wasn't what it is now. I mean, when I looked to see if I had any lineage back to anyone that was killed in the witchcraft trials, there is a family member from that has a family name in Norfolk, and she was killed in the witchcraft trials for wishing a man dead who then died. that was her crime. And for that she was tried and killed as a witch. I shouldn't laugh, but it is laughable. Does that make me a hereditary witch? No, because the likelihood is that she probably wasn't a witch at all. And witchcraft then is not what witchcraft is now. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there, going with that. So I'm not sure on hereditary, to be fair. But if you have that lineage, fantastic. One of my grandmothers was a spiritualist. So I think there's a lot going back to, for my generation, probably to your great grandmothers even sometimes would have worked with folk remedies and herbal remedies and things as a matter of course, not necessarily make them a witch though. But thoughts on that, welcome as always. Just because that's my thoughts doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. Sasha, like many of us, I started off in the early 90s with Wicca. Nowadays, I call myself an eclectic witch, although these days I feel I should call myself menopausal witch. I'm with you on that one. Absolutely with you on that one. Jackie, I think that was eventually what split our coven, but in a positive way, as all the members seemed to find their own paths after the training. Some left Wicca, some became magicians, some hedge witch. Yeah, I think it is. It is one of those structures of training that gives you a good foundation. Absolutely. David, 16 years old gives me, yes, the craft vibe. Yeah, and I think that kind of sums it up, really, doesn't it? Janie's really struggling with Colleen today. Yeah, cats and phones, perhaps not a good mix. Maria, that's a good point. Perhaps we should all call ourselves types of witches named after Terry Pratchett witches. That would work. Jane, I was a red witch last night, just kept my long red comfy thing on and donned a red hat. Some of the kids said, I like your costume. So I told them it's not a costume. This is the one night of the year when I don't have to dress up as a muggle. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? It is funny. Sue, currently looking at art magic, so may add art witch into my green hearth witch working title. Now, I did see you mention about this the other day, Sue. I think arts and crafts are a huge part of witchcraft. Anyway, I don't necessarily see it as a separate thing. I think that we're creating magic, we're creating spells, we create ritual, create. We are creating when we are working with witchcraft, whether it is a sigil or a poppet or a spell pouch or the script for a ritual. It's all arts and crafts. And I think that plays a huge part in witchcraft, absolutely huge part in it. Colin, blowing a gale here in Clonelly. I'm looking out the window and it is chucking it down the rain here. Jackie, every time I hear the term obod, and as a person of a certain age, it always reminds me of Odd Bod from Carry On Screaming. Now, I hadn't thought of that before. Now I do. Now I do. And off topic. We often go off topic, Hannah. You know what it's like. There was a piece in the Sun paper about Ginny Methril, a fourth generation witch, who said she had received lots of grief for being a witch. Have you ever had issues identifying as a witch? I've never had any negative, as in discriminatory or horrible experiences. I have had laughter and I have had mockery. That one particular thing that springs to mind is when my daughter was very young, I was in the local newspaper my tattoo artist was in the local newspaper, and I was in there as one of his artworks because at the time I worked in an office, so I wore a suit to work every day. Take off the suit jacket and there's all the tattoos. So they were running it as, you know, people you wouldn't expect to have tattoos. But then they also mentioned in the article about my being a witch and the witchcraft. And several of the parents in the playground when I went to pick my daughter up, so saw you in the newspaper, ha ha ha, gonna turn me into a frog then, or you know, ha ha, Disney witches, because they didn't believe that witchcraft or witches were real. They had the whole idea in their head about Disney and about Hollywood and it all being made up. And that's the general reception that I've come across. So nothing nasty, just not people not believing, making a mockery of it, really. Shush you. Oh, it's kicked all the blankets on the floor now. Right. Angela joined a coven run by a highly thought of high priestess, worked with Ralph Harvey and Dorian Valiente, met them both, so info was valid. The whole coven walked when we worked out we were being groomed for nefarious intent. Not good. Do love the word nefarious, though. Such a good word. No slower mouth for Dorian. Here it was. Yeah, there is this thing, isn't it, that it draws people, I think, that want the power of it all. It's a shame. It happens it's not just witchcraft, it happens in a lot of groups, I think, unfortunately. But I think as well, perhaps if you are looking for a group, I'd say it is about getting recommendations. It is about respect as well. I have worked, very honoured to have been taught as well by Janet Farrar and Gavin Bone, and have met them as well. Obviously, such a history. They taught me on their progressive witchcraft course, which was fantastic. So yeah, I think it is. As soon as you feel it's a bit hinky, but it's also about finding reliable people, get recommendations from people. Yeah, absolutely. Jane, my nana was very superstitious. We teased her about it, and once I told her it was very unlucky to plug two things into a double socket with the wires crossing. It was something that went back to medieval times. Oh, I remember that one. Sephora, can I just say I like the clothes and the boots and the hats. Okay. Thank you. Maria, most were cunning folk generations back, which were some were accused of witchcraft. I think most of it, though, generations is folk traditions rather than hereditary witches and witchcraft. Yes, because, you know, Wicca is a modern thing anyway. A lot of traditional witchcraft draws on the older stuff. A lot of the cunning folk would have, you know, worked with these superstitions and the folk magic as such. Yeah, it's all a bit mixed, really, isn't it? Maria, can't wear hats. My head's too small. I love a top hat. Do love a top hat. Jodie, saying hereditary witchcraft is a bit like saying hereditary Catholic. I hadn't really thought about it like that. Just because we're born into it doesn't mean you don't have to go through the learning to call yourself a thing. I think you've nailed it there, Jodie. Think you have nailed it there. Yes, you've still got to put in the training, the learning, and the experience. Charlie, do you think Ellen, Cynthia, etc. had maybe cunning folk magic, family traditions passed down, but I don't think they would call themselves a witch or hereditary witches? No, I think that's interesting. I know Ellen quite well. We've chatted quite a lot about things. Do you know, no, I don't think she would call herself a hereditary at all. I think the interesting thing for me, witches today, myself included, I don't think we learn witchcraft. I think we remember it. I think a lot of it is old knowledge from, I know, previous lives, if you want to look at it like that. I think we remember the witchcraft rather than learning it. Emma just had something weird happen. Someone came to the door, said something I couldn't understand and walked off. Oh, okay. I think as witches, we attract the weird stuff too, don't we? Jalala, I was watching a program last night that I think was from the early 70s about witchcraft. It was terrible, really bad accusations. Yes, of child abuse and all sorts. Shocking to see such prejudice towards witchcraft even then. Yes, it did. And it did get a lot of bad press. And I think a huge amount of it is lack of knowledge. People not understanding what being a witch, what being a pagan really is and what it involves. And it is Hollywood and Disney and, you know, stories, fiction that have painted it in such a bad light. David, there's a lot of traditional witches I've met that claim to be inherently witches. I wasn't convinced. Couldn't see how anyone can claim to have an unbroken line from hundreds of years without being noticed by the local church. Yeah, I mean, there is that too. And as I say, if you look at, I've done a bit of research into the witchcraft trials and things. A lot of these people had nothing to do with witchcraft of any kind. A lot of it was because they, you know, they had a funny birthmark, or they had red hair, or someone wanted their land. Yeah, I think it's a difficult one to prove, maybe. Maria, yeah, look for hats in the kids section, Maria. That's a good idea. Jodie, creative. Yeah, I think witchcraft is very creative. Very creative. Colin, if people ask me what my beliefs are, I just say pagan. It's interesting that if someone asks me, I usually lead with the P word. I usually lead with pagan and then see how that reception goes down. And then if that's okay, then I come in with the W word. Lead with pagan, only come in with the witchcraft word if they seem to be getting on all right with it. Hannah, I think that was the satanic panic. No, see, now I've gone into Rocky Horror mode. People associate witchcraft with the devil. Yeah, it is. Well, yes, it isn't. It isn't interesting. It's going to be really confusing now. People do associate witchcraft with the devil if they don't understand. It is a Christian belief. There is no devil in paganism. But if you look back at a lot of the cunning folk magic, if you look back at a lot of the more traditional witchcraft things, the folk magic of it, they sometimes did call on old Nick or old Horny. They did call on his energies for some of their magic. So it's interesting to look at. But yes, I think it's misinformation, isn't it? A misunderstanding. Hi, Kerry. Yeah, Eric is now up here in the sofa up here, fast asleep. I did have a good birthday yesterday. Thank you very much. Angela, maybe a better term would be that the whole coven sacked them. The rest of us are still in touch, though we are spread far and wide across the world now, both physically and spiritually, so no longer work together. Okay, that's quite drastic, but sometimes you have to do it. Emma, the now deceased local self-proclaimed white witch of our area, who was anything but, was a very power-hungry high priestess of her coven. I refused to join. See, I'm fairly wary of someone that calls himself a white witch. I think that term is used more often than not to make the media feel more comfortable. I don't work with the term white witch. Which, if you're working witchcraft, you're grey. You're that kind of colour that, the old shirts come out when they've been washed hundreds of times in with other things. Again, it's my thoughts. Lady whose blog I read wrote about a certain HP being of the same ilk as Rolf Harris and Jimmy Savile, which is what made her leave the coven. Apparently, he's still revered enough to do. Oh, high priest, sorry. Still revered enough to do be doing talks at Witchfest and other festivals. I'd love to know who he is so I can stay away from his talks. Okay, so I actually know that story. I know both sides of that story. What I would say is, unless there's proof, I think it would be worth bearing in mind that a lot of things can be misunderstood. A lot of things can be misconstrued. Not that I would ever dismiss anyone's claims, but bear in mind that there are always two sides to one story. And I think it is very irresponsible to put stuff out there unless you have absolute proof of it, because it can be very damaging to both sides. I do know the story you're talking about. So, yeah, just bear in mind that not everything is as clear cut, I think, is the moral to that one. Dawny, I agree with remembering. I always decorated the house with seasonal items. It was like a must do it. Then when I discovered my true nature, I realized I remembered. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Once you get along with your journey and you suddenly think, oh, that's why I do that. Cat, I spent the whole of my childhood holidays with my nan, and she was a country lady, and she could foretell the weather by insects, birds, and animals. She taught me so many herbal remedies and all about plants and what they can and can't do. She could also see and talk to spirit. I just think of her as a wise woman. And yeah, folk magic and superstitions. Yes, she would probably never have thought to call herself a witch. And I think probably a lot of us have got or had grandmothers, great-grandmothers that were very much connected to folk magic of a sort. You are correct, Maria. Now, this is where witchcraft comes in. Witchcraft being the magical practice. People of all religions, any religions, can practice witchcraft. I know some Christian witches. I know a Jewish witch as well. I know a couple of Hindu witches. So it is. It's interesting that. Sorry, I turned my phone sound off, but not the vibration, and it's making very loud noises. David found out about a witch trial around here. No verdict recorded, but what she was charged with rolled my eyes. She was charged with cursing a boy to die because he ran off and fell over, and she was the only person who could soothe the baby girl from crying. I think you'll find that's a reoccurring theme between a lot of the witchcraft trials. Absolutely. There are demonologists. That's a fabulous word to say. Not sure they'd identify as witches, though. There are those that follow the path of Satan as well, and I don't know an awful lot about it, but I do believe it is not what Hollywood would have you believe it as well. So there's a lot of fear of paganism. A lot of people think it's evil. It is lack of understanding, isn't it? It is lack of knowing anything about it. And believing the misinformation that's put out there as well. Delilah, 50 Shades of Grey Witch. Jane's a pinky beige witch. Okay. Okie doke. Thank you, Jodie. Yeah, it was my birthday yesterday. Thank you, everyone, for all of the wishes. Yeah, you got it there, Jalala. I think you have hit the nail on the head there. Let's be very careful that we don't create a witch hunt among witches. I think in today's day and age, it is very, very easy for misinformation to be spread. I think it's very easy for it's gossip a lot of the time as well, isn't it, that gets around. Let's bear in mind that it can be quite damaging. Yeah. And there will always be unethical people in every faith and every walk of life. Absolutely. It was one of the biggest shocks to me when I started my witchcraft journey. One of the biggest shocks to me was the fact that I thought everyone within the witchcraft and pagan world would be lovely. I thought they're all following a nature-based religion. They're all following this wonderful life. Everyone's going to be lovely. Nah. Witchcraft wars? No, because ultimately we are all human beings and there are good and bad people in every pathway. Yeah, absolutely. Did anyone else make potions when they were little? Sometimes added toothpaste to mine to make a paste potion. When I was very young, I had a friend called Emma. Her birthday was the day before mine. So she was born on the 30th of October and I was born on the 31st of October. We used to spend hours at the bottom of her garden because it was quite a big garden with lots of trees and things, making potions. because our birthdays were, Halloween, day before Halloween, we believed we were witches. So we used to make potions with leaves and mud and twigs and things. Yeah. David, known a few witches who were exclusive Christian in their practice, summoning the archangels, Jesus, Holy Ghost, and saints. It's interesting, isn't it, actually, with archangels and angels? I know quite a few witches that work with the archangels. I know quite a few Wiccans that will call the archangels in for the quarters. I never have had any connection with angels or archangels. It hasn't ever figured in my own practice. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that particularly the archangels are ancient. Angels predate Christianity. So it's all a bit of a crossover, isn't it? Yeah. Charlie, some US paranormal podcasts, YouTube shows I've watched so negative to paganism, which is Christianity is right, everything else is wrong. Pagans are all devil worshipping or doing bad things. I think that's just religion in general, isn't it? It is just misinformation. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? In an age of misinformation, one wonders how it will go for pagans and witches in the future. It's a growing religion. Paganism and witchcraft, Wicca, is a growing religion. So I'm hoping that we will be able to overcome all of the rubbish stuff. But then it happens with other religions. Other religions get misinformation spread about them as well. David, I've known some witches who don't identify as pagan, which surprised me at first. It doesn't go hand in hand. It does not go hand in hand. Witchcraft is the magical practice. I work with the old gods, so I am a pagan witch. It doesn't necessarily go hand in hand. Maria, just want the houses and kitchens in Witches of East End, Sabrina, and Practical Magic. Yeah, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? Hannah thought the same, very disillusioned. I did. I think it would all be lovely, but it wasn't. So, yeah. Jane, it's such a shame we have to test whether people can cope with us admitting to be witches before we come out fully. I do that. There are enough of us about now. I think there should be a day designated for all coming out at once. Yeah. Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? An out of the broom closet day. Yeah, good old-fashioned. Yeah, it's people. It is people. It's what happens. Angela, always made potions as a child and still do it. Yeah, we all do. Perfect. Charlie, thought the exact same with paganism, goddess movement, spirituality. Took quite a lot. Hopeful, romantic. Yeah, Jane, I know some people can't come out because it would compromise their jobs, but I'm just saying, why should we still have to hide our practice in this day and age? Yeah, I agree. I agree, Jane. Is I don't know is the answer. Lee, been taught recently about angels and archangels, have done a bit of research myself and do now call them if I feel they're needed. And I think this is what I love about these pathways. You can make them work for you personally. Just because one person doesn't work with it doesn't mean that another person can't. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same, isn't it, Colin? I can understand people not wanting to come out. We had the same problem back in the 60s and 70s about being gay, and I think that still happens today, unfortunately, as well. Yeah, it's human beings, unfortunately. When not all human beings are good or tolerant or accepting. That's the way it goes. So we've gone over time again. I'll cover a couple that I missed out very quickly, just to make sure we've covered them all. So stregeria is Italian word. I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure. It's Italian version of witchcraft. It means the old religion. Stregeria means witchcraft in ancient Italian. Very similar to Wicca in a way. Views and practices similar. They honor a moon goddess, horned god. They do have slightly different ways of celebrating the Sabbats, apparently. Don't know a huge amount about it. So Seax Wicca is another one, loosely based on Saxon paganism, founded in the early 70s by Raymond Buckland. Some of you will know his name, I'm sure. Not any real formal rules or regulations as far as I'm aware. They follow the Norse gods and goddesses. They read the runes. Fairly relaxed tradition, as I understand it. They have Coven high priests and priestesses who are elected, apparently, and unelected on an annual basis. But yeah, following the Norse gods and goddesses, but in a kind of loose Wiccan kind of way. Another one is heathen. The dictionaries will use the term heathen as someone that doesn't follow Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. It's an old term, sometimes used in a bit of a derogatory way, I think. But heathens are followers of pre-Christian Germanic and Norse gods and goddesses, very much in tune with their heritage, with their lineage. To them, it's very, very important, the heritage and the whole structure of it relating to those Germanic and Norse gods. I know quite a few heathens. They do follow the belief of the weird, which I love. I do. That works for me too. It's about weaving your own fate. It is about the web of weird being stretching across the globe, and everything is connected. Fascinating. Leading on from that is Asatru, and I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly either. Another kind of slightly associated with Wiccan. They follow the Aesir, the ruling race of Norse gods. They work a lot with runic magic as well. Again, a lot of cultural heritage. They don't follow anything outside of that, their beliefs. It is Norse path, really. There's lots of little branches that I think Odinists that follow the teachings of Odin. Then we have the fairy faith, fairy witchcraft, which is working witchcraft following the fairy world, really. Fairy folk, fae folk. Dianic Wicca. Different from other Wiccan traditions, and in that it is a female-only tradition. They only work with the goddess. Founded by Zed Budapest, as far as I'm aware. It is a feminist movement named after the goddess Diana. They worship her solely. She's seen as the source of all living things. Rituals very much female orientated, obviously. Not big fans of the patriarchy. And I think that's all of the ones I've got. I made notes today to make sure that I covered them all. I think I have all of the ones that I could think of. I think ultimately it is about making it work for you, though. So, Emma found her work. Well done. Good. Yeah. David, my partner keeps outing us. She's a witch. I'm proud of it. Yeah. Yeah, Maria, I'm going with headology. Pratchett nailed witchcraft. He absolutely did. Certainly a mix. I'm least too indecisive. But I think it's fluid. I like your pathway is fluid. So yeah, going back 30 years, I would have called myself Wiccan. No, I don't now. I haven't done for a long time. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It is just the way my pathway has moved. At one time, I would have called myself more of a druid. It's just the way that my pathway worked. So yeah, it is fluid. Definitely. Oh, there's one I've not heard of, Hannah. Rodovny, which is a Slavic spirituality, much like folk traditions. I don't know that one. Thank you for that. Charlie, obvious question. What is a simple way to connect with an ancestor, call them in? I want to do this with my mum, but I get quite emotional, so it would need to be simple for me to be able to do it. I would do it in a form of meditation. Light a simple candle and meditate, or just sit quietly and call. Put the call out there. Yeah, keep it simple. But I think with spirit work, particularly with ancestors, if you're not used to it, keep it very simple. Light a candle, focus on the flame, call in who you want to speak to, or sit down and set yourself up in a proper meditation space and meditate with the intent to meet them. There's some good words. Yeah, headology is a Terry Pratchett word from the Discworld books, but it describes human beings and witchcraft perfectly. Maria, your pathway is like your day and night, constantly flowing one to the other. Yeah, absolutely. So interesting chats today. Thank you, everyone, for your input, as always. It's your pathway. Make it your own. There is no right or wrong, only your way. And if someone tells you you're doing wrong, you can tell them where to go. So have a fantastic week, everyone. Myself and the girls will see you on Saturday if you are at the Wandering Witches. Otherwise, I'll see. Oh, no, I won't see you next week. Almost forgot. There's no Wednesday chat next week. Sorry about that. I will be back in 2 weeks. So next Wednesday, you'll have to talk amongst yourselves or watch an old one. Jane has suggested, yes, clear quartz crystal. Hold it while meditating to make the connection with spirit. Clear quartz crystal or selenite's very good as well. Yeah, brilliant. So I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Have a fantastic rest of the Samhain celebrations, and I will catch up with you all again soon. Take care.